I recently came across this video on YouTube, and I thought to myself, I would love to make $100 million. So I thought, I better try Alex Hormozi's productivity system that made him $100 million and see if that works for me. Let's see what happened. Now, I am not one to bury the lead, so I'm going to tell you right now, I have not yet made $100 million. But I can see why this works. Today, what I want to do is I want to walk you through very simply what this system looks like and how you can implement it yourself. Second, I want to talk about realistically how this works, because it never goes according to plan, which you're going to see in just a few minutes. And of course, I want to talk a little bit about results, what this is doing for me, and how I'm going to use this going forward. Now, to kick this off, I want to mention the sponsor of this video. This video is being brought to you by AppSumo, specifically TidyCal. TidyCal is a scheduling software that is very similar to Calendly and other tools that are being used, but it's so simple to use. It does everything you need it to do, and it does it at a fraction of the price of basically any other offering, especially considering that you can buy just a lifetime license of it for right now, $29. Then you never have to pay again, which is almost unheard of in software these days. Anyway, I'll show you how that ties into this later, because that is definitely one of the tools that we're going to be using to help simplify our lives. So to kick this off, here's essentially what this productivity system looks like. There are two types of tasks and essentially two types of time that we should spend on these tasks. There is manager tasks. These are tasks that you regularly switch between. These are tasks where it's like, boom, 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 get them done. Meeting after meeting after meeting, or bookkeeping and email and follow up and that kind of stuff. All these little things where you can just jump right in, get it done and move on. Then there are maker tasks and of course, maker time. Maker tasks are those tasks where you're most productive when you can have undisrupted time, where you can just get into a state of flow and then productivity just skyrockets. And the problem that Alex points out is when people that are doing these two different types of tasks have to interact. And you got people who are working on manager time who are trying to get all these things done and they need to interact with you, and you're trying to do a maker task. And what happens is that somebody says, hey, do you got 5 minutes? But it disrupts a very long period of your time. Let's say you're in the middle of a 4-hour time block and all of a sudden, boom, train of thought is gone. It's going to take me a half an hour to get back into that flow state. That 5 minutes just cost me an hour. Alex suggests that sometimes it could cost you a full 4-hour block of maker time. And if I'm honest, that has definitely happened to me many times. And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you are both a manager and a maker. In fact, most of us find ourselves playing both of those roles at some point. Whether we're talking about a job, you're in a job right now, there are tasks you need to do that just need focus, and disruption is just going to totally mess with that. And then there are meetings you need to have, coordination, and other just administrative tasks that you just have to do as part of your day. This system helps you be more productive with both of those things so that you get way more done. Now, as a business owner, which again, many of you watching this are a business owner. If you're a content creator and you don't do that as a job for someone else, it's to try to make you money yourself, you're the business owner. You are definitely doing both manager and maker tasks. And having too much interruption from these manager tasks could be preventing you from accomplishing nearly enough to be able to see the levels of success that you want to see. These are the things that separate people like Alex Hormozi from most of us who just don't get enough done. And it's because Alex admits he is ruthless with his time. I find that I have a little bit harder time being ruthless with my time, which is one of the things that is holding me back. And I think I'm going to try to be a little bit more ruthless, but hopefully in a kind way. All right, so here's the process. Here's what we do with this whole concept. Step one, we need to time block our maker time specifically. We're going to put that on the calendar first. In a video years ago, I showed this analogy. I was taught this as a kid. The analogy is this. If you take a jar and you fill it halfway full of sand, and then you try to put in a full jar's amount of marbles after the fact, of course, what's going to happen? About half the marbles are going to spill out all over the dang floor. But if you put the marbles in first, fill the full jar full of marbles, and then a half a jar's worth of sand, you pour it in afterwards, it'll fill in the space around the marbles and it all fits. You can fit more stuff in the jar if you put the big stuff in first. Well, manager tasks, many of them happen to be things that we can fit in between stuff. They're things that just don't take a whole lot of mental energy to shift between one and another. They're just things that need to get done. You just do it. Let me show you my calendar. This is my calendar for this week. And you see these big blocks of time? These are, for the most part, maker time. Now, because this is happening literally this week, These are things where I've specifically planned out what I'm going to work on during that time. But if I show you next week, you'll see that I have some spots where I'm just like quiet time, and other spots where I put manager time, which we'll talk about in just a minute. This quiet time doesn't mean I'm taking a nap. What it means is it's time where I am to not be interrupted so that I can focus on a specific project. And sometime between now and then, I will make the decision about what priority I need to focus on during that 4-hour block of time. Now, in this book, 10x is easier than 2x. I've mentioned this on this channel because this was awesome. By Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Dan talks about how he blocks his day in 4-hour time blocks. Shorter time blocks than that, he says don't tend to be very effective. Now, Dan, in a big part of what he does is he spends very little of his time in manager time because that's not his forte. So he spends almost all of his time in maker time, it seems, doing the things that he is really good at. And then he brings on the right people to do all the other stuff for him. Now, a lot of us aren't in a position where we can hire a whole bunch of people to do all those tasks for us, and we need to be able to switch back and forth. So the best thing to do isn't to rapidly switch between maker tasks and manager tasks, but to dedicate as long a block of time as you can for maker tasks. Now, what does that look like if you're working a full-time job and you're just trying to create content on the side? We've talked to that audience, to you, many times over the years, and we've said just dedicate an hour or two a day. That needs to be an hour or two of maker time. It needs to be uninterrupted time. Manage your tasks for your little business that you're working on the side, trying to hustle and make it happen. Those tasks you're probably going to need to kind of figure out a way to accomplish throughout the day, in your morning, here and there, where you have time. And those are the kind of tasks that you can easily fit into those places. But what you absolutely need is at least a few maker sessions throughout the week. And that might look like 1 to 2 hours, a few nights a week, and maybe a 4-hour time block over the weekend. But a lot of us just can't get that done because of family obligations and just other things happening in life. What will make you successful is if you get disciplined enough to dedicate yourself to maker time. Even if it's minimal like that, just put it on your calendar and then find a way to be ruthless about it. You can do it in a kind way, but also be ruthless about it. Just the other day, my wife was here at the office. She stopped by to visit, let me know some things that happened after an appointment. And I was like, okay, but I don't have a lot of time and I need to go make a YouTube video. And so I'm sitting there feeling a little bit of anxiety because I'm like, I'm watching this maker time evaporate, but I'm like, this is my wife. Like, this is important. I need to talk to her. But after a little bit, I saw this conversation starting to shift toward not important stuff, just kind of hanging out at that point. And at that point, I just said, hey, sorry, but I really need to go make this video right now. And if I don't do it now, I'll run out of time. And she was completely understanding. She's like, oh, yeah, of course. How often do we not say what we need to say because we don't want to hurt people's feelings? If you're a people pleaser like me, that's probably basically all the time. Be ruthless kindly, but be ruthless with your maker time so that you can get the stuff done that needs to get done, and communicate that and help the people in your life understand what your needs are so that you're able to get this maker stuff done. All right, the next step is we need to then fill in the manager tasks. I've already kind of alluded to this. Manager tasks, again, are things like your email, your meetings, your phone calls, and all that. I would even include if I'm doing an interview to create content, right? Someone's going to interview me for a YouTube video or for a podcast. Those are things I don't have to get in a flow state for. If we set up a call, we're going to set up the call, we're going to start having a conversation, and boom, you're going to ask me questions, I'm going to answer them. That's easy. It's not the same thing as getting into creative state to make my own video. So I need to put those kinds of things in my manager time. Now, the easiest way to do this is to automate as much as you can. So when somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, I'd love to interview you, and I look at their stuff and I'm like, yeah, this would be great. Let's do an interview. We don't do this whole back and forth. Well, what's your availability? I used to do that. It was crazy. I'd look at my calendar and it'd be like, well, okay, Thursday's wide open. It's not really because I need creative time, but it wasn't blocked out because I didn't have specific meetings. And next thing I know, I have in the middle of my Thursday an interview that disrupts half the day because losing the flow. And also it's like, oh, I've only got 45 minutes till that interview. Well, not enough time to film this video. So I guess I won't film it yet. And then that 45 minutes is less productive because then I'm like looking around for tasks to try to get done. No, so what I do now is I send them a link. This is where TidyCal comes in. With TidyCal, I can send people a link to like a specific, let's say they need 30 minutes. Cool. I give them the link, copy this link here, and then this is what they see. They get a look here at my calendar and they're like, all right, well, in the next couple of weeks, looks like Tuesday and Wednesday, he's unavailable. but I can get them this Friday for 30 minutes. And the cool thing is this is just tied into my calendar. So as long as I'm maintaining my calendar here on Outlook, then I update it here, and people that want to meet with me, it's going to be up to date. They're not going to be able to schedule an appointment with me at a time that doesn't work for me. I use this all the time for interviews and stuff, but also most of you who are content creators, one of the things you probably should be selling in some way is some sort of coaching or consulting. And if you're going to do anything live, man, just use TidyCal. The cool thing is for this version, there's a free version, just like there is of Calendly and everything else. But with this very inexpensive, full professional lifetime license that I have, I'm also able to collect payments with my bookings. So I can set up a booking like this one, it's a 60-minute meeting, and I can say, well, it costs $60. Or I set up another one that's a coaching session, and I put a link to this on my website, where literally someone clicks that they want to schedule a coaching session with me. It can take them here to TidyCal. They can see, okay, I want a coaching session with Ricky. Well, if I want it next week, it's got to be Thursday. Let's see what his availability is. Okay, yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And they pick a time that works for me based on my schedule. And then once they pick that time, then I collect the information that I need from them, which I can customize, and it collects payment right here. And I don't need a separate payment processor. There are also a ton of other awesome features within TidyCal. You can do date polls, if you've seen these before, where essentially like let's say I want to do a cookout with my team. We do that a few times a year, or some kind of party, right? And we're trying to pick the day, the time that works for everybody. And we've done all sorts of these kind of polls for lots of things on the team, including like, hey, we want to host an event. When would be the best week for everybody? And what we do, put a title here, create a URL for it. So this could be barbecue. And then I put a description here. And then I say, here's how long it's going to be. It's 2 hours long. And I put in what dates that I want to include in this. And then I create the date poll, which then looks like this. And people can pick from the dates that I put into and the times that I put into there and pick the ones that are going to work for them. And in the end, we take the one with the most votes. This is all built into TidyCal. I can also set my availability globally. So it's like, well, I'm 8:30 to 4:30, like anything outside that window, even if my calendar says I'm open, I might be sleeping or doing stuff with family. I can set it so that it's consistent from week to week. I can also set specific unavailable dates like Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve and Christmas. These are dates where I'm sorry, not going to take a meeting with you. For a long time, I've been using a lot of other tools to do all this stuff. They're just too expensive. I ended up having to turn them off, and I've just been making do. And then I found out about TidyCal and was convinced right away. So if you want to boost up your productivity and automate all of your scheduling, your booking, that kind of stuff, just use TidyCal. It's kind of a no-brainer. So to recap the system, it's really 3 steps. First, we do need to separate all the tasks that we do into, is this a manager task or a maker task? Is it something I can easily task switch between, just get it done? Or is it something where for me to be really productive, I need longer periods of uninterrupted time? Then what we need to do is we need to block time on our calendar in as large a time blocks we can, up to at least 4 hours. If you can do full maker days, even better, but just recognize that a maker day might be more than one maker task. You might switch from one project to another later in the day. Totally fine. Alex is hardcore and says there have been times where you do 4-hour time blocks in a day. That's a 12-hour workday, which a lot of us entrepreneurs end up doing on a fairly regular basis. But I would probably have to do it a lot less if I did a better job of this time blocking. And then step 3 is we're going to fill in all of the manager tasks, either between maker time blocks or even during manager time blocks. So you can literally take a half a day and just be like, boom, these are manager tasks. But then the next question is, what do we do when life gets in the way? Literally, the first day that I went to try to implement this system for myself, I had blocked out the whole morning. You know what happened? There was a storm the night before, and a giant branch from my tree busted and was still hanging on, but not by very much. And I was like, well, I have a child that plays in my backyard all day long. I really don't want this thing falling on his head. So I got on a ladder, and I got out the chainsaw, and I took care of it. And I lost an hour. First day of trying to do this. There are going to be things that are going to come up. There are going to be times when a really important meeting that you've been trying to book with somebody who is even harder to schedule time with than you just come up. It's like, I have an opportunity finally to meet with this person, but it's in the middle of one of my maker blocks. What do I do? Fine. Move that maker block somewhere else, even if it's to another week, rearrange those kinds of things. Now this time block, this is a manager time block. So what do we need to do? We need to fill in the rest of the time for this time block with other manager tasks. In fact, it could be that you have a manager time block scheduled for tomorrow, move those tasks to today, and now you have a new opening for your maker time block that you were going to do today. You have to leave some room for flexibility because not everything is under your control. If I'm only ever available for podcast interviews on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the person that's doing the interviews is only ever available on Wednesdays and Fridays, we will never sync up. We have to be willing to have some flexibility, but most of us probably don't have that problem. Most of us probably need to work harder on having a little more rigidity. Be ruthless about your time to the extent that you possibly can. And when you need to adjust in a way that doesn't ruin the whole system. And I am confident that you're going to be able to 10x your business, whether or not you ever get to $100 million like Alex did. So finally, for me, what do the results look like? The results are that there are projects that have literally been on my to-do list for months that all of a sudden I have time for. Things that I've been putting off because it's like, oh, I've been meaning to work on that today. I've been meaning to work on that today. And I sit down to work on it, and then something comes up and I don't get very far, even if I work on it for an hour. But so many of those projects I've looked at and I've thought, I could probably do that whole thing in 4 hours if I could just dedicate 4 hours to it. They're finally happening. So as much as I haven't made $100 million yet from this productivity system, thanks, Alex. Thanks for sharing it with me. I've known about time blocking. I've known about manager time, sort of. But the way he explained it, I thought was really beneficial. So I would also encourage you to go check out that video because there are a lot of tidbits and stuff. It's just on the long side, but there are a lot of really good pieces of information that you're going to get from hearing Alex explain this that I probably didn't construe in my long, but not nearly as long video. So definitely go check out that video, and we'll see you here in our next video on Income School.